Good morning, and thank you all for being here. Today we're going to talk about fair trade and what it might look like to have a fair trade sale or store located in your church. First of all, fair trade is an important piece of hunger ministry. It helps producers access needed resources. So by paying a fair price, producers receive more than the market sometimes offers them. That allows them to provide more fully for their families, to gain control of their lives, and to live with a level of increased dignity. Fair trade also provides a forum whereby producers can tell their stories to the consumers who enjoy their products, a great way for people all over the world to meet over shared economic concerns. Today we have as our experts presenters from Stone Presbyterian Church in Clinton, New York, Laurelyn Kolb, who will be joining us by a recorded message, Julie Bills, who is from First Presbyterian in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Mary Pantelio and Valerie Amley from Puyallup, Washington. We'll start with a presentation that Laura Lynn recorded for us.
We did not set out to establish a fair trade shop. Like many churches, we began by selling equal exchange coffee, tea, and chocolate to our members after church. One day while on vacation, I wandered into a shop with the charming name 10,000 Villages and discovered that this was a shop dedicated to helping people around the world work their way out of poverty. I bought some jams from Africa and took them back to church. I asked if people thought we might offer them. Everything else stems from that. There were people in our congregation hungry for the church to become involved in this kind of thing. Some of them knew of companies that were dedicated to social justice issues. We gradually added products and gradually learned that we could get wholesale accounts with these companies. At first, we just wanted to offer items at cost, but we discovered that this was unfair to local health food stores that carried some of the same products. For a while, we gave away most of the profits, but after we began reinvesting, it wasn't long before we discovered that the more we reinvested, the larger we grew, the more we were able to purchase, which meant those around the world who made the products were able to sell more. We are a very small congregation with a beautiful old building that is too large for us. The building, however, is a blessing in that it sits across the street from the village green, which hosts a large number of events. This has made it possible for us to sell to the public, both locals and those that come to Clinton just for the day. Sometimes we take things over to the green, and sometimes we just set up in front of the church. We've also packed up part of the shop and taken it elsewhere, to Hamilton College, a local nursing home, other churches. We do not have a business plan. This shop is the result of a series of coincidences which we believe to be the working of the Holy Spirit. We therefore believe that we have simply followed where the Holy Spirit has led. People saw what we were doing and made us aware of other possibilities. Might we sell items at the church bazaar the day after Thanksgiving? Might we open during the Clinton Art and Music Festival? Might we be open on Thursday mornings year-round? My favorite coincidence is when we heard that our Chamber of Commerce was having a special shopping day. We decided on the spur of the moment to open. A local couple that had been doing their trade out of their home for 30 years drove by and saw our sign. They stopped in and asked if they could bring their items to sell at the church. They would give our shop the profits. By the end of the day, they had told us that they had been thinking they could no longer maintain their shop. They offered to work in our shop if we combined our inventory. Suddenly, we were able to be open all day, every Thursday, and offer items from 10,000 Villages. Another coincidence is that after we started selling Maggie's Organics, one of the bulletin inserts for the 1 Great Hour of Sharing featured the very company that made the Maggie's tops we were selling. These instances along the way have helped us in our process of discernment. Whenever it has been time to take the next step, something has happened to push us. As one elder said, if someone wants to help us, why would we say no? We are now open all day every Thursday year-round, the second Saturday of every month, and Saturdays between Thanksgiving and Christmas, in addition to after church on Sunday mornings. We collect and we pay state sales tax. We experienced some reluctance and resistance at first. Some members thought that we were competing with the yearly church bazaar, or that if we didn't limit the sales to once a year, we were becoming like the money changers that Jesus drove from the temple. It is crucial to have your session totally behind what you are doing. It is also crucial to do a lot of education about what fair trade is, by way of minutes for mission, newsletter articles, and special programs. If you decide to have a shop in your church, there are a few things to be aware of. It will break your heart the first time you discover you've had a shoplifter. You will have to learn to be vigilant. If your shop is in the same space as your coffee hour, and you expand, you may end up competing for space. If you decide to have regular hours, think carefully about what that means for the scheduling of events, especially weddings and funerals. The Holy Spirit has led our congregation in a way we never imagined. In 2013, we purchased over $23,000 worth of merchandise from 6 companies: Equal Exchange, Serve International, 10,000 Villages, Maggie's Organics, Bead for Life, the Women's Bean Project. We have used profits to make donations to a variety of causes, both local and international, including our local Presbyterian Home Parkinson's Project, local chapter of Habitat for Humanity, and to help fund our pastor's participation in an Equal Exchange trip to Nicaragua. Our coincidences have continued. We have outgrown our space, but after decades of sponsoring a Boy Scout troop in our basement, the troop will fold when the last 2 scouts finish their eagle. One has chosen for his project the refinishing of the basement room the scouts have used for years. It has an outside entrance, and it will become the Building Stones Fair Trade Shop.
And now Julie will tell us a little bit about her work in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Julie?
Good morning. We started with chocolate and coffee, and in 2008 we had a young man in our church who had been in Peru for a year as a young adult volunteer, and he came back with this idea of having a store in our church. Now, typically, before this, we had always had a fall market, and we would order from Serve or another company, and we would have items and sell them for 2 weeks, 2 Sundays, and then send back what we didn't sell. We had them on consignment. So this young man, anyway, wrote a grant and was able to get $1,000, and then I believe our church matched it. So we had $2,000 of seed money to start it up. And in the beginning, we did not have a place for it. We would just put tables out in the narthex, and we would keep all of our goods in Rubbermaid containers. So before church, we had to unpack everything, and then after church, we had to put it back. And this went on for about a year. But luckily, at this time, our church was undergoing some renovations, and I was able to talk to the session about putting something in that could be permanent, and my idea was a fair trade closet. And this is a closet that has 4 doors, and you open up the doors, you pull everything out, and so people can see what's for sale, and then at the end, everything fits back in the closet. And this has been incredible because it's in our hospitality area, and our church has 2 services, 8:30 and 11 o'clock, and then in between is the Sunday school. So our fair trade store is in this hospitality area where there's always coffee and orange juice and water, and it's kind of the place where everyone comes in and comes out before and after the services and during the Sunday school hour. So we are open every Sunday from 9 o'clock till 11 between the 2 services, and then in the summer our church goes to only 1 service. We have a 9:30 service, so we're open to half an hour before the service, during the service, and then afterwards. I have about 25 volunteers, and I schedule 2 volunteers per week to work, and that's worked out really well. I do the ordering and the arranging of the merchandise, the pricing, the scheduling of the volunteers. I'm kind of the person in charge of all of this. I order from, I believe, 6 or 7 companies. We started with Partners for Just Trade and Serve, and of course Equal Exchange for the coffee and the chocolate. We have since added the tea, and recently the jams and the honey, and we are going to try those. I do not mark things up. I kind of believe that this is a mission in and of itself, so we don't mark things up. I will round up prices. If something sells for $11.87, we'll round that up to $12 to make it easy for the volunteers. But my philosophy is kind of the more we sell, the more we're helping these people. And if all these items are in the fair trade store and are not moving, then we're not helping anyone. So the faster I can move the products, the faster I can reorder and help the artisans. In Oklahoma, I find that the cheaper items sell more. I have a hard time moving the more expensive items, and I think it's just part of where I am and the economy and what people are used to spending. I have had people tell me, well, I can get my coffee cheaper at Walmart, and this is where you have to educate and explain, well, yes, of course, but this is organically grown. We're helping the farmers, and go in and really let the people know what this is all about. Most people are not aware of fair trade and the benefits of it. We are open a few extra times during the year. We have a living nativity scene on one night during the Christmas season, and the youth put this on. They serve the hot chocolate, so we have the store open and people can come in and then buy the hot chocolate and all the other items. We are open perhaps another Saturday around the Christmas season and sometimes in the spring season. The young man that got this going, his idea was to have it open year-round and have it perhaps staffed by people from other churches in Stillwater. But we do not have an entrance that has an exterior entrance, and I wish we did. You've actually got to come into the church, so this kind of limits us to when the church is open, and we have not been able to have something be open year-round. But we are open Sundays, and the sales have been great. Sales always go down in the summer. We only have 1 service. People are on vacation. But during the school year, our sales are good and, of course, fantastic around Christmas. We sell lots of chocolate, lots of coffee, and lots of olive oil. And those are the 3 main staples that people are buying every Sunday. And then, of course, they're getting the gift items. We recently had what we called a Taste of Fair Trade, and had a special tasting where we got to taste all of the food. That created lots of interest, and I think now my food sales will go up, and people will think of the Fair Trade store not just being the gift items, but also food items. And sometimes people have too many things. You don't want to give them a gift, but food is always an excellent alternative. So these are some pictures you've been seeing of our Fair Trade store in the Fair Trade closet, and we lock it up when we're finished and then open it up and bring the items out each Sunday. And I guess that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you very much, Julie. Now we're going to turn it over to Mary and Valerie to tell us about Shepherd of the Hills Presbyterian in Puyallup, Washington.
Good morning. Valerie and I are a little bit different. We come from a church of about 220 in Washington State, and we've been doing a market once a year, usually in the fall, for the last 15 years, just for our church. And within the last 5 years, we've opened it to the public. What we've done is we've consistently tried to pick the date. We're always the first weekend in November, so that our shoppers are used to looking for us at that time of year. As you can see from the pictures, Valerie's going to talk a little bit about how we display our things.
We have a fellowship hall that we use for our display area, and it's about 25 by 45, so it's a nice large space. We do this on a Saturday, so we're not interfering with our church service. And we set up on Friday, and we allow the whole day, and we usually have a staff of about 4 to help us, plus the individual vendors that come. As you can see, our tables are pretty colorful. We use a lot of fabrics that members from our church have brought back from Africa, plus tablecloths that are provided by Jubilee traders.
And one thing that's sort of unique to our sale this last couple of years is we've been working with a local fair trade store in Seattle, so it's about 40 minutes away. But we've partnered with them, and they do a lot of the ordering for us, which makes it nice because they're able to get anything. During the month of October, they've gotten free shipping from Serve, so they don't even pay the shipping. But we can get larger items that we typically wouldn't order or wouldn't be able to get from vendors, to smaller items, and whatever doesn't sell they take back to their store. So that's been a really nice partnership. And we work with Fair Trade Winds, which is in Seattle, but they also have about 7 stores across the country. And I was just at their main store in Bar Harbor last week when I was on vacation. Did you talk about how we arrange the items?
Oh yeah, we try to set up different areas of like kitchen interest, areas of children's toys, women's accessories, and so people kind of have a feeling of where they want to go and shop for these different items. We also bring some props from home, like mirrors, some screens, so people can kind of really get a feel for how this might look on them, or how they might be able to use it in their homes.
Another step that we tried this year that was new to us is we started a breakfast, and we had sort of what we like to think of as our Fair Trade Educational Hour. And the women of our church, we had another committee that put together just a very simple continental breakfast. And we had a guest speaker, a woman from our church who works for World Vision, who had been to Africa. And she was able to share her story and talk about what was on her heart, and saw the need for young girls in Africa to have feminine hygiene products, and from that became a project for the women in our church. And so not only are we able to continue with fair trade, but we're also working on creating feminine hygiene products for the girls in Africa so that they can go to school.
The Sunday before our market, we set up a sampling table. It's just a small table in our fellowship hall, so during coffee fellowship, they can see some of the products that will be offered, and that's really helped to stimulate interest in our sales. We also include a flyer for about 4 Sundays before in our bulletin, so people are aware that the sale is coming up and what the purpose of the sale is.
I think Julianne Laura Lynn also mentioned earlier, you'll have to do a lot of education within your own congregation and in your community about what fair trade is. And so, Gary mentioned, we try to have those inserts going out about a month before we actually host our sale to try to get people, you know, to begin to understand what it is and to begin to ask questions about what it's all about and get excited about it. It's a lot of fun. It can be a lot of work. You just need to just sort of dive right in and see where the Spirit's leading you, as Laura Lynn mentioned. We started out, when we originally started, we tried 2-day sale on Saturday and Sunday, and we found that that was a lot of work for our church, and our sales on Sunday weren't really worth the extra work. And so what worked best for our community was to have it just a 1-day sale on Saturday. So it's just through trial and error that you figure out what works best for your community and your church. It's, like I said, it's just a lot of fun. I don't think there's any wrong way or any right way. I think the more that you can try to make your tables attractive and not, as our friend says, sort of garage sale style, where it's just sort of thrown out there on the table, makes it more visually appealing to your shoppers. I think we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. As you can see, experiences are very different depending on what your goals are. At the outset, as you're considering whether or not you should do a sale or a store of fair trade items at your church, you're going to want to assemble people who are also interested in doing the same thing. You probably know who these people might be already in your congregation. All 3 of our presenters have worked through their mission committees. It's important to get the buy-in of the church, and our structure insists that we use the committees that we have standing. Working through your mission committee can ultimately get you approval from the session for the funds and the space that you will need. As you think about the dates for your sale or the space that you will need, you're going to want to ask whether or not this initiative is for the members of your congregation or whether it's for your entire community. In addition, as has been shared by some of our presenters, using the same date if you choose to do a sale can be very important. That way the community knows to expect you, and it also helps you do promotion and get prepared. Many will begin with coffee and chocolate. If you already do fair trade coffee and chocolate in your congregation, you're well on your way to a good beginning. Partnerships are also very important. As Mary mentioned, they partner with a local fair trade store so that they can expand the items that they carry. This helps them to reach a broader audience and also keeps them from having too much overhead in their project. So how much money are you going to need in order to do this? Well, that, of course, depends on the size of your sale or the store. One of our presenters started with $500 worth of coffee, chocolate, and other food items, and then started with consignment from Serve International. Consignment allows you to receive the items and sell them, and then send back what you do not sell along with the money for the items that you have sold. Note that when you decide to do this, each company that allows you to sell on consignment has very strict rules about what you can send back, when, and how you should send it back. So observing the rules for each individual vendor is very important. For a store, you may want $1,000 to $2,000 worth of seed money. Both of our standalone store presenters received a grant of some sort at the beginning. This often is done with matching funds, but it really allows you to build the space and get the items that are going to be best for your community and for your particular sale. So it's important to look at grants that may be available for this type of work. How much time do we need? Well, time is often a challenge in small congregations. The first question you're going to want to ask yourself is how fast the committees in your church move. Many communities have responsible mission chairs that can't wait to jump onto a new initiative to try and help the world's hungry and poor. However, many mission chairs feel overwhelmed by the amount of work they're being asked to do, and so it'd be helpful to get the mission chair as well as other members of the mission committee on your side as early as possible. It's been recommended by our presenters that you place orders for your sale or your store 8 weeks before the date that you would like to sell. Now, this is for a few good reasons. First of all, many vendors have back orders, especially around holiday seasons. You want to know what items will actually be able to be sold as opposed to what you've simply wanted to sell. So knowing that when you order, you're not necessarily guaranteed to receive every item that you've ordered is a really important thing to keep in mind. Also, you'll want to be able to replace those items that are broken or out of stock, or make the vendor aware of that problem. Staffing for the sale is also an important thing to consider. Again, if you're setting up certain hours, you'll have to have people at the store during those hours. You'll also want to allow for the time of ordering, time for setup, time for tearing down. Now, while this may sound like a lot of work, and it is, it's also a great opportunity for fellowship with members of your community and people also interested in the work of hunger and poverty alleviation. So it can be an important part of the ministry. What items should you sell? There are a couple of really important and good opportunities that you'll be presented with as you decide whether or not to do a fair trade sale or store in your church. Many fair trade vendors have prepackaged holiday sale kits. These are an array of items that come prepackaged together that make it sort of a turnkey operation. You simply say, I would like a holiday kit worth X amount of dollars, and they send the materials that you will be selling, the products from all over the world. They try and get a good mix, but you will likely be limited by what is in stock for the vendor at that time. These holiday kits are usually done on consignment, so they are things that you have an opportunity to send back those items you have not sold or used. It can be a really great way to get started. Coffee and chocolate, again, as was mentioned before, are a great place to start. And you can do this all year round. Our partnership with Equal Exchange allows you to, through the Presbyterian Hunger Program, connect with Equal Exchange and sell fair trade items. In addition, a portion of those things that are sold through our partnership with Equal Exchange get turned back to us in the form of a grant for small farmers. So that money that is raised through selling coffee and chocolate, a little bit comes back so that the Presbyterian Hunger Program can help farmers directly in the form of grants. As was mentioned by Julie, lower-priced items tend to sell faster. There's an opportunity, especially as you are beginning, to really connect with your customers through items that are not very expensive to sell. Vendors. You'll want to look around to see what vendors offer a good variety of products for you to sell. Now, it takes more time and possibly more startup funds to start sourcing from different vendors. It might be a little bit more difficult than a prepackaged holiday sale kit would be, but it also allows you to have greater variety and control over those things that you're selling. So it might be a great option for you as you get larger or as you are in year 2, 3, 4 of your sale. A few of the vendors that we have discussed here today, or that we have relationships with at the Presbyterian Hunger Program, include Equal Exchange, who sell coffee and chocolate, Serve International, who sell arts and crafts from all over the world, as well as some food items. Partners for Just Trade, who sell arts and crafts from Peru, and who, incidentally, were helped at their very outset by the head of the Presbyterian Hunger Program, Ruth Farrell, when she was a mission co-worker in Peru. Mayan Hands and Upavim are arts and crafts from Guatemala. Maggie's Organics is an apparel company that specializes in wool and cotton socks, as well as apparel and clothing for women. Or, as Mary and Valerie have done, you can explore the opportunity of partnering with a local fair trade shop. By partnering, you're allowed to expand your offerings while not taking on nearly as much risk as you might otherwise. So explore all the options that you have available to you. Additionally, if there are other local congregations who might be interested in doing this work together, it might be a really great ecumenical experiment to try running a fair trade sale or shop together. How should you promote? Well, signage is of course important. Each of our presenters during their slideshows showed us just a bit of the signage opportunities that are available. In addition, all of them use Facebook as a way to connect to potential customers, as well as to educate and tell the story of fair trade. Craigslist is a good place to let people outside of your communities know that this sale is going on, and bring in different folks who may be interested in fair trade or may just be preparing for their holiday season. Your church website, of course, is an important place for you to promote the activities that you're engaged in. A bulletin insert leading up to your sale or leading up to the days that you are open is also a great way to let the people inside the congregation know about what's going on. More than just encouraging they themselves to come to the sale, it's also a great space for you to educate them on the work of fair trade, the reason behind your shop, and the mission being carried out through fair trade and selling it to the members of your church. Also, your presbytery may get involved. This is a great way to connect with other Presbyterian churches in your area who may be interested not only in participating in your shop or sale, but starting one on their own. You may become, incidentally, a resource person to Presbyterian churches all over who are interested in fair trade. A small flyer for members to take with them to their workplace is a great way to reach beyond the doors of your local congregation. Much like word of mouth evangelism for churches in general, it's word of mouth for fair trade, word of mouth for the mission of the church. Also, a sampling event where people can try out different food items or touch and see the products that will be sold at the sale builds interest and starts to drive traffic toward the sale once it begins. Things to consider. Do we sell at cost or for a small profit? Our presenters have gone different ways on this. In Clinton, New York, they sell for a small profit and allow the profits to be reinvested back into the shop. This way they've expanded their items and been able to do bits of outreach as well as give some of the profit away to worthy causes. This may not be what you want to do, but it is an opportunity. There are always legal and tax implications to deciding to sell anything. You'll want to check those out both locally and on a state level before you get started. I'm sure your mission committees will be interested to know before you sell your first item what it is they should be doing in regards to legality and taxes. You might want to consider having a bank account for your store so that you can run your store adequately and that you don't mix funds between the store's account with the work of the mission committee or the store or the church's general fund. You'll want to check out supplier rules for returning items as well as for ordering. Many have minimums that you have to order in order to be one of their to have an account with them, and so you'll just want to know before you get started. Again, this is where you might want to check out the return policies so that you make sure to save boxes. If you need to return items in their original boxes, you'll want to have a good accounting of your product, of what's in stock, so that as you prepare to return items, you know how many things have been sold and how many things are available to be returned. Sell-by dates on food can become tricky. Many people who work in fair trade stores end up buying a lot of things that are about to go out of date. This is something you'll probably have to get over in the long run, or your own shelves will be overstocked with jams and chutneys that no one wanted to buy. Finding a good outlet for those food items that are out of date will help to train you to order less, but also may provide an opportunity to do some good work by giving gifts or donating things to local food shelters, or food projects of the congregation or your community. Shipping costs are always going to be something to keep in the back of your mind. Many organizations offer free shipping for minimum orders or low-cost shipping options available as well. When you're figuring the price of the items that you're selling, you'll want to take into account how much it costs to ship them to you, or else your fair trade store or sale will lose money even though you've done good work trying to connect to the mission and ministry of fair trade. Order minimums. This is also a good opportunity for those of you doing a standalone store, especially. Waiting to order your stock and your product until you can order enough to meet a minimum is a great way to save on shipping, but also allows you to expand your vendor base. 10,000 Villages has a very high minimum that you must order in order to be to be a shop associated with them, versus some of the smaller vendors who work more easily with small accounts and small stores. You need to account for breakage and loss, including those items that are stolen. As we were reminded by Laura Lynn, it is something that happens even in our churches. Sometimes small items begin to disappear. You may think that you would be immune by being in a church and being a part of a charitable endeavor, but this just isn't true. So account for that as you make your preparations. Again, it doesn't help anyone if you lose lots of money in the process, and it discourages churches from participating in the future. Also, prepare for some items not to sell. This is not as big of a deal when you're working on consignment, but it's an important thing to consider if you are buying a large stock and trying to sell it to your congregation or community. Some things just aren't going to sell, and you might want to make space for the ability to mark down products, which is one reason why people have considered selling things for more than cost. There are always obstacles in any sort of work that we do. Possible obstacles for running a fair trade store or shop out of your church include familiarity with fair trade and its purpose. You'll have to do lots of education as part of this work. Educating your staff, your congregants, and your community about the work of fair trade is a great thing to do anyway. And there's no better way than getting the objects and the products into the hands of those congregants and those community members, to let them know the work that fair trade does. Also, being able to tell the stories of fair trade producers is an important piece of the ministry. It's an important way to connect your congregation to their brothers and sisters all over the world, and to recognize the needs and desires of those people as being bound up together in a sense of community and a sense of care. There is often an opposition to selling things in churches. This is something that you're going to have to work with a session and with your mission committee to educate people on. It's not the same as selling as what was being sold in the temple during Jesus' time. I promise you, Jesus will not flip over the tables at your church. There's a lack of exposure to global poverty. Again, this is where storytelling becomes so important. Learn the stories of the producers of your fair trade products. Being able to share the realities of those people and what they live with is an important part of marketing these items to people in your churches and in your community. Also, you're going to want to make allowance for who will be responsible for the ongoing work of the store or sale. The people that you've met today are deeply committed to the work of fair trade. They devote their time and their energy to this work every single year. For many of them, they treat it as a calling, as a personal ministry engaged for the sake of those who suffer poverty and hunger all over the world. This may not be you. You may not be the one able to devote hours and hours of your time to this work, but more than likely, with the help of your mission committee or others interested in fair trade, you'll be able to help one another get the work done. You'll be able to find a person who maybe can devote that amount of time and effort and energy to the ongoing work. The benefits really are worth it, not only for those who benefit on the producer side, but also by invigorating your congregation with energy of a fair trade sale, connecting them to people all over the world, and engaging their values and Christian principles for the sake of those in need. At this point, we can open it up to any questions that there are. Jessica, have you received any questions?
Not yet, but we can give folks a few minutes to send us any questions that you have using your chat box.
And until we have questions, I'd like to open it up to our presenters again. If they have any other thoughts that we have missed so far, or things that they would like to share about their experiences that they've remembered during the course of the presentation.
Bryce, this is Mary, and I do have a couple things that I'd like to share with our listeners. I would just like to share the vendors that we've used and have worked successfully with. There are a couple that weren't mentioned previously. We've worked with Jubilee Traders, which is a company that works with artisans from Nepal that make hand-block table linens that are just beautiful, and those have been very successful at our church. And also Beads for Life, which is an organization that works with women in Uganda that make the paper beads, and they're wonderful to work with. And also I'd just like to share the next steps that Valerie and I are taking. We were able to travel with Enough for Everyone and Equal Exchange Coffee in January, and we met the artisans that grow, the farmers that grow the coffee, and some of the other artisans, the merchandise that are sold through fair trade organizations. And we came home and were inspired, and so we are hosting a second sale. So now our rhythm will be a sale in November and also a spring sale. And we're also taking steps to apply for a seed grant from our presbytery to take the next step to create a store in our church like Julie has or Laura Lynn's. Or perhaps we're also looking into having a van with a mobile market that we would be able to go out to other locations and other churches.
That's really exciting. Someone asked me to put up the vendor list again. So again, this is just a starter list, and I've actually been putting together, with the help of not only our presenters today, but also a few other folks, a more robust vendor list that I will distribute to those of you who are on the webinar after our webinar is complete. So rest assured you will get not only the names, but also some contact information and a little bit more information about the work of each of these vendors, so that as you prepare, you can have a good sense of what's available to you moving forward.
So I have two quick things to jump in with. Sarah wanted to share that Partners for Just Trade has screen printed fabric bags from Cambodia and a lot of items from Haiti, so that's something that they've used. But another question that was brought up was, Amy wants to know if you can, if anyone has advice about who, regarding the tax and legal implications, who locally or at the state level would it be good for people to check in with?
Okay. Julie, have you had much experience with the tax and legal implications of doing a fair trade store?
Well, because the church is tax-free, when I set up my wholesale accounts, I often have to send a copy of that letter or that document. But so as far as Oklahoma is concerned, we do not collect taxes because of the church status. And anyway, that's the way it is in Oklahoma. Each state is different.
Yeah, it's really important for you to check out the your state laws, and the place to begin is with your Secretary of State's office. Usually they will have information about use tax or sales tax, and whether or not that is something that's going to implicate your particular sale. So starting with the Secretary of State, the Secretary of State's office is going to be the first place to begin.
Bryce, I also think the treasurer at your church will have some guidance on some of those questions that you might have, and they would be a good partner to work with also.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We have another question. This is from Michelle. So Michelle says, we have typically done a once-a-year fall holiday sale. However, since I have the Serve catalog in October, I've taken it to our family camp and offered to take orders and pass along the 10% discount that's given on pre-orders. This way, I can order what people want and cut down on returns. Do you see a problem with doing this? So do either of you engage in pre-orders at all?
No, we don't.
I often tell. Oh, go ahead.
We don't do that. We do have the catalog out during our sale, so people can look at that and order a catalog for themselves. I guess the fear is that people might want to order it, but whether they'll take it when it comes has been a little bit of an issue.
Okay. So that's one concern with pre-ordering from the catalog, is that people may see it in the catalog and want it, and then when it comes they may feel differently, or they may not have the money for it at that point.
Another question that Winifred has asked is about if there's a PCUSA Fair Trade blog, or if you've thought about how folks could share their ideas and questions.
That's a good question. So there's not currently a fair trade blog specifically. However, the Explorations in Just Living blog, the blog of my office, Enough for Everyone, is a space that I'm trying to build up. And one of the ways that I'm trying to build it up is by having people share their thoughts and their connections with fair trade, as well as their exploration in simple living, or explorations in reduced consumption in general. So I'm open to any sort of ideas or presentations about how fair trade has impacted your life, or how it's impacting your church, and what you're doing to help the world's most vulnerable through your economic engagement. Julie, you sometimes let people order things directly from you. Is that correct?
That is correct. Often I've had customers, someone pick something up and two people want it. So I will take orders. The serve catalogs are out, and often people will ask, well, I want this, or maybe they want 6 of something for Christmas presents. I've also offered people to bring their bunco group or their bridge club, or some kind of group they're in, and I would open up the fair trade store for them. In our church we have a preschool, so before Christmas all the teachers received a gift every year, and this past year they received a gift certificate at the fair trade store. So typically the store was not open when they're at the church, so they were able to use their gift certificate, and of course most of them bought additional things too. So if it were a huge item or a big ticket item, I might ask for a deposit, but I haven't had problems with people requesting things and then not wanting them at the end.
That's good. Patty Sanders, who is on the webinar and is a Hunger Action Enabler, would like those of us on the webinar to know that there is a new referral program through Equal Exchange that allows 10% off the first order of the person referred. So that's a nice option as we head into the holiday season. For those of you wanting to get started with coffee or chocolate, if you are referred by someone like Patty or some of the presenters here, you can receive a discount on your first order.
Bryce, can I add something here real quick?
You bet.
I just want to highlight a way that we found a support group is we were able to travel with Enough for Everyone in January, and we went to Nicaragua, and we traveled with 10 Presbyterians from across the country, and now they're our support group. And we just had a week together where we just brainstormed. We got a lot of great ideas, and it's just been a valuable, valuable resource for Valerie and I in the work that we're doing and the steps that we're planning to take.
Thank you. That's a great thing to note. Actually, the Nicaragua Fair Trade trip, jointly run by Enough for Everyone and Equal Exchange, will be beginning its application process here soon. I will be coordinating with Equal Exchange this week to make sure that we get all of the new information up on my website, which is www.pcusa.org/delegations. So that will include the upcoming dates and a link to an application for maybe your chance to see fair trade in action on the ground in Nicaragua with Equal Exchange and the Presbyterian Church USA.
So we have one more question, and Michelle wants to know if you can say more about finding some of the grants that some of the presenters have mentioned.
Sure. For us, we went to our Presbyterian website, and they have a link on there for a seed grant, and they have the application, and they tell you when they're due, and it's several times throughout the year. We unfortunately missed the May deadline, but we're shooting for the November deadline, and that's, I guess, what I can tell you. You'll just have to follow the application process as it's stated.
Perfect. I'm not sure where Laura Lynn received her grant from, or that church received one of their initial grants, but I can relay that question to her and see if she can follow up directly about where their grant came from. Sometimes the mission committee will have a direct relationship with different foundations in the area, and they will have a bit more information about who might be interested in doing grants on this work. But as I learn more and know more, I will certainly make that information available to you through Laura Lynn. Julie, did you all receive a grant as well?
Yes, we did, and I would have to find out, but it was through the Presbytery, and I believe that the young man that wrote the grant received $1,000, and then our perhaps mission committee matched that. So we had $2,000 startup.
Perfect. Yeah, so primarily through presbyteries interested in doing the work on fair trade. So I think that wraps up the presentation. Jess, are there any more questions?
It doesn't look like it. I think that's all.
Okay, wonderful. If you do have additional questions, you can send them to me at my email at bryce.wiebe@pcusa.org. It's there on your screen right now. In addition, you will be receiving a follow-up email that will include a helpful hints document as you start this work, as you start to consider doing a sale or a store in your church. And you'll also receive a full list of possible vendors with contact information and a bit of information about what they sell and just some helpful hints in working with them. Also, I would certainly be interested in your stories of fair trade as you either pursue a sale in your congregation or as you just find fair trade out and about in your everyday life. I'd like to hear more about it. Sending me your pictures and stories could get you onto the blog that I run as a way to help others process, to help others learn more about this process, and also just to share your experiences with others. When we create communities around ethical consumption, we build networks and places that we learn from one another about the good work being done and how to do it better.